Say that the world is in a bad place where 187 sovereign nations, 206, I think, actual sovereign nations, and we just can't get along. We can't see past to the greater good. And I'm not talking about we need to have one world order, that sort of stuff. Yeah. But we can operate as independent sovereign nations while at the same time stewarding the important natural resources and reaching technological heights to where we can eliminate things like hunger.
Right.
Or disease.
All right. Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be sitting down with Christopher Marohn, a self-described reformed lawyer who has mastered the art of making the legal world genuinely entertaining. Chris brings a fascinating blend of California advocacy and real estate to the table. He is currently a senior vice president at Boomerang Capital Partners and a registered lobbyist, but you might know him best as the co-host of the Comedian of Law and Debriefing the Law podcasts, where he uses his trademark humor to break down Supreme Court headlines and legal news. We're going to be doing a deep dive into his journey from Sacramento labor politics to ASU law and the intersection of human capital and risk compliance. I hope you enjoy. Awesome. So I'm here with Christopher Marohn. I don't know how much you prefer.
Chris is fine, Blake.
Okay. And I hear that you're a reformed lawyer.
Yep. So I serve as in-house counsel, as chief legal officer, general counsel, and senior vice president to Boomerang Capital Partners, which is a real estate investment trust based here in Mesa, Arizona.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you usually do on a day-to-day basis?
I put out fires. So a real estate investment trust, or a REIT, under different federal and state laws, allows for investors to put their money into a almost tax-deferred investment that allows for large returns, but it's volatile investments. They're, depending on the structure of the REIT, investments can range anywhere from short-term loans, like hard money loans, where you lend out to somebody to do like a fix and flip on a house or a residential transition loan, or it could be locked up in a larger project like building a private airport or private airplane hangars or medical facilities or strip malls. They can go all the way up to crypto investments, all sorts of stuff. So it just depends on what your REIT structure is. Ours is based in specific real estate, doing hard money loans, residential transition loans, and construction loans. But I make sure that all of our loans are in compliance. I make sure that all of our docs are in compliance, that our investor onboarding is in compliance. I make sure that we are abiding by all the states that we lend money in, which is 9 different states, that we're in compliance with those laws.
Okay.
And then I handle all of our legal issues that arise from the business of doing mortgage lending and other aspects of the business. When we engage with vendors, I review all the contracts there. When we are paying vendors, when we're paying crews to handle things, I make sure everything's lined up there. I do all of our risk management assessments. I do all of our compliance work. I do all of our bank secrecy acts. I deal with the FinCEN a lot. I deal with the SEC a lot. I deal with Department of Interior a lot. So I handle. It's weird to think how much in-house counsel handles in a like mortgage lending business, but it is a ton. So I just spent the last week leading up to this going over all of our properties in Texas. So I started in Houston and ended in Dallas and drove to all the major metro areas in Texas, just checking on investors, checking on with lawyers, meeting with all of our teams in Texas to make sure that everybody's doing what they should be doing, just kind of a status check with everything. And and just taking people out to dinner and making sure that the company is running smoothly when, we can't physically be in Texas and in Arizona and in all the time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So it's you mostly work in Arizona, or is it a lot of different states?
My gosh. So we work Arizona, Texas, Colorado, Utah, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina. So we have teams in all of those states, and I oversee all of the operations for all of those states with all of the legal ramifications, federal stuff in Colorado and Texas and here in Arizona and parts of Utah and in North Carolina a lot, we deal with sovereign nations, so different native tribes, working with them and how their lands work out. So you have to work with the state government for lending money. You have to work with the tribal government on how you can lend money to people on tribal lands. And then you have to work with the federal government because there's a treaty between the federal government and the sovereign nation governing the types of money that can be lent out for certain projects. So Department of Interior comes into play there, the sovereign native nation comes in there, and then the state law comes in there. So we coordinate with that as well.
That is a lot to deal with.
Yes. So I don't do it all on my own. I have a staff of about between 30 and 35, depending on what projects I'm working on.
Okay.
So I oversee all of those different teams to make sure that they're firing on full cylinders and getting everything done that we need to get done. So
Gotcha.
Part project management, part legal project management, a lot of people management, and then government relations management and relations management as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is your favorite part about your work?
It's different every day.
Okay.
Like there is some repeatable reports that I do every week, and one-on-ones with my teams are kind of repeatable, but we don't see a lot of the same problems popping up.
Okay.
We just always see new problems, right?
Yeah.
So I was in this position in the Biden administration, and I've been in this position in the Trump administration. So from the federal government standpoint, two very different approaches to how business is done. So every day was different, especially during the transition time and in this first year of Trump's administration. How things are handled are very different when budgets are passed, right? Depending on who's in Congress,
right?
Depending on what the budget is and the rules that are passed and the legislative things that are going on, you get different laws that apply at different times. The one big beautiful bill that was passed in Trump's first year really solidified a lot of the real estate investment trust rules that were set to expire from the Biden administration, which then shifted how people invested money because now the REIT structures were more of a permanent structure and less of a temporary structure. And so you were able to focus that way. Under the Biden administration, the Department of Interior had more freedom to make policies on their own that benefited sovereign nations. Under the Trump administration, those rules have been rolled back, so the Department of Interior doesn't have as much leeway with sovereign nations that they once did. So a lot of it is, and then you have state governments that are constantly changing rules, or local municipalities that are city ordinances and stuff like that are constantly changing how they want to see building codes or how you can build in their areas. And so it's a lot of legislative modeling and monitoring and paying attention to what's going on in the states that we operate in. Texas and Arizona and Colorado really haven't changed much over the last 10 years. There has been fluctuations within the legislature and things have been changing. But when it comes to the expansion and building side, everybody's worried about where the water is going to come from.
Yeah.
And so Colorado River feeds Colorado, feeds Arizona, and then feeds down into Mexico, feeds part of California, feeds part of Nevada.
Wow.
And so with the Colorado River having the issues that it's having with producing less and less water every year due to a whole host of issues that we don't need to go into, now we have to renegotiate what that, we being the state of Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, and California and Mexico, have to renegotiate how much allocations of water make it down the Colorado River to eventually end up in Mexico. And so with the United States Free Trade Agreement, under NAFTA, which was Bill Clinton, and then when the U.S. Mexico-Canada trade agreement, which was under Trump's first term, how they renegotiated some of the water terms with Mexico, it just makes for things that you don't think would apply to, hey, I want to get a loan and I want to build a house in Gilbert.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think about all of the ancillary, like, how is the Department of Interior affecting this loan? How is the United States, Mexico, Canada trade agreement affecting this? How is water from the Colorado River affecting this? And that's where, as my job focuses on, right, I need to make sure that all of this other stuff is in line, so that way we can make these loans with knowing that the guy would be able to build the house and then be able to repay the loan.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, we want our money back, right? That's what loans are.
Of course.
So I have to make sure, and people don't, like, when you go buy your house, like when you're when you go buy a house one day, you're not going to think about all of the fact that Arizona has 100 years of water law that says to build, you have to show where the next 100 years of water are going to come to support that area. So when you think about all the expansion in Santan and down into Coolidge and down all through that valley, and all of the apartment complexes we see coming up over in Santan and south of the Gilbert Temple and all that jazz, there has to be water that feeds that.
Right.
And they can't get it approved until they've shown where the water comes from. And so all of that comes together. So that way, a nice little 27-year-old young man, when you're ready to buy your first house, you don't have to think about that stuff. That's what I do in the background.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
It is. It's challenging. It's fun. It is mentally exhausting.
Okay.
Which is the career that I wanted to have. I didn't want to just kind of show up and be bored at work all day.
Right.
Now there are days that I want to be bored at work, and it's just not going to happen. But the reason I chose this career path was that I wanted to be mentally challenged every single day.
Okay.
With what I do, and it keeps me mentally sharp. It keeps me focused on what's going on around me, and it allows me, in this day and age, a lot of people are freaked out because they don't understand how the world works, and the media is a fun place to kind of feed the fear, depending on what side of the aisle that you agree with, or either or none.
Right.
There's a lot of just information out there. So by being so involved with just our little slice of the world, I have, anecdotal evidence of, we're not, this isn't a bad thing, or this is a bad thing, or this could lead to this, could lead to, you could follow the conclusions rather than flying off the handle on emotional arguments.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically, that's a pretty hefty, I guess, roadmap of what you deal with on a day-to-day basis for law. When you were in Sacramento, what were you dealing with?
So I was working for, at the time, Governor Brown. I was working on natural resources policy and water rights.
Okay.
So during the time that I was there, just shortly after 2010. California's always in a drought. It's just kind of the standard. California is in a drought. It's always in a drought. There's more people than there's water, but it's conservation minded. There's a lot of statewide environmental laws. There's a lot of incentives to have drought resistant. So California's always in a drought. It's been in a drought my entire 40 years of being on this planet. They always will be in a drought, even though they're right next to an ocean. And we could talk about desalinization later and how that could be helpful. But I worked in Governor Brown's office, specifically working on water law and natural resource management to make sure that the expansion that California was trying to do and the things that California was trying to do to help support the population, bring down housing prices, to be able to provide economic stability to the citizens of California, we focused a lot on conservation, on good water usage, good water policy, and then California has such great forest lands for so many different things.
They do.
And so, in a few years back, after I'd left the office, the entire area of Paradise burned down from the campfire due to lack of utilization of natural resource management, and that came from a lot of different things, not focusing on those areas. The constant political battles that went on in Northern California.
Oh, for sure.
And the grandstanding that went on there, both in Sacramento and in Northern California, caused, a lot of people to not just lose their homes, but lose their lives as well.
Right. Here on just one sec.
Yep.
Let me get this thing turned off.
Pause.
I think it overheated, actually. Oh. Huh.
Right.
Well, something happened, and I have no idea what.
Just start it over.
Yeah, I'll just start it again. It's fine. At least it's saved.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. That works. Oh, is it charging? Yeah, it's charging. Okay, good.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So did you have to do? Obviously, we had to deal with a lot with the drought regulations and honestly, I'm not from California, so I can't relate that well. But
so there's always a lot when you're dealing with, California is the second most populous state in the union, and you have you have two very different states in California. You have Northern California, you have Southern California. Northern California has all of the resources, all the natural resources. Southern California has all the people and all the money. And so you're dealing with, like, California has all the farmlands. It has all of the fertile valley areas. The Salinas Valley in California has 187 different crops of lettuce that they grow every year. Monterey County itself feeds all of America with lettuce. Between Monterey County and Yuma, Arizona, that is where 100% of 97% of the lettuce is grown for the entire country is grown in those two areas because of the humid, dry-ish atmosphere that allows for the type of crop, the type of lettuce to grow and to flourish in those areas.
Right.
So when you're thinking about how you are going to feed America, and the water is funneling through 1 to 2 locations, Yuma, Arizona, and essentially Salinas Valley, California, you're always going to have a drought because you need that massive amount of water to feed the crops that feed America. So with that being the precipice of California is always in a drought, we are, as citizens and as businesses, we're always in a drought because we need to be restricting our water usage so that way the farmers that are feeding not only our great state of California, but the rest of the nation are getting the water that they need so the crops can get to the people that need to get to them, right? We're not growing corn in California. We're not growing wheat. We're growing apples and alfalfa and almonds and lettuce. And I grew up around rice fields outside of the San Francisco area I grew up in. And the rice fields, you flood them 5 or 6 inches. And then they grow out of the flooded water. You flood them once, and that feeds the entire product, and then it dries out, and you come through with the baler, and you take all of the rice plant, and then you burn the rest to the ground.
Wow.
And then you throw out the seeds, and then you reflood. And that's on a 3-month cycle. And you do that every 3 months, and that's how you grow rice in the Sacramento Valley. And so to have...
I did not know that. That's so weird.
Right? So if you're doing in the realm of 1 million square acres that you're flooding 5 inches at minimum.
Yeah.
And you're doing that every 3 months. So you're doing it 4 times a year. So, quick math, back of the napkin math, you're looking at somewhere in the realm of close to 5 to 8 million inches of water that you have to produce just for rice, not for other products, just for rice in California. So we're always in a drought. So what does that look like to the rest of the world? What does that look like to the populations of San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Clarita, Santa Barbara? What does that look like to the population of San Francisco, San Jose, Silicon Valley? Versus what does that look like to Redding, California, or Humboldt, California, or Fort Bragg, where if you broke California up, and if you're a California native, you break it up into 3 real states: Northern California, Central California, Southern California. Central California is like San Luis Obispo to San Francisco. Anything north of San Francisco is Northern California. Anything south of San Luis Obispo is Southern California.
Okay.
Because the San Luis Obispo to San Francisco line is where most of the crops are grown if you just take straight lines across California.
Yeah.
So you got to get the water from wherever it's coming from, whether it's coming from Tahoe, the Colorado River, or other natural aqueducts, and you got to get it down to Southern California, which goes into the LA Reservoir. And then you have to get that out to the, 20 million people that live, south of the LA basin. And so there's always water issues. We're always in a drought. And then add in fires, add in heat waves, add in environmental issues, add in, add. And so our job when I was in the governor's office is to find creative ways to manage our water. Okay. So that way we could capture more from rainfall. We could work on projects like desalination, and we could find different conservation incentives for people to do. Like here in Arizona, right? You have desert landscaping.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
California would incentivize you to do drought resistant landscaping. Like they would pay for it. They would have you take out your front yard and here, let's put in all of this gravel and pebbles and we'll pay for it. And then that way you're not using water anymore to water your front lawn.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And so we talked with the different water companies. California American Water is huge in that area. Some independent cities own the rights to their water and power.
Okay.
And so our job as in the governor's office was to go and make sure like that these programs were known about, that one, that there was funding in the California budget to do that.
Yeah.
Two, that the products were known about by individual customer, like all the way down to like you who pay the water bill for your house. We can do all these things in Sacramento, but you live in Studio City, Los Angeles, right? With 5 million other people. Yeah. How do you individually find out that you can have your front lawn, if you had a front lawn, changed out?
Because there's a lot of people in apartments.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the flip side to that is, how do we stop people from stealing the water to fund their pet projects? One of the things you see a lot in more affluent areas, people love their trees. They love their green rolling hill grass. They love all that stuff. And it's like, okay, we're in a drought. Right. You can't be doing this. And so then became the enforcement branch where what is enforcement? What is pricing structures set out for all this stuff? And so our office in the natural resources, and John Laird at the time was the Secretary of Natural Resources for California. Okay. And he was from the Central Coast. And I worked with John when he was a member of the state Senate in California. And so we just tried, most of our days were spent trying to figure out how can we help Californians figure out how to use the water more efficiently. And some of the cool, like for 2010, the technology was cool. Yeah. Right. You're starting to help people figure out what gray water systems they can, get in their house to where they can brush their teeth, which funnels into their toilet rather than down a drain. And then that water was used to flush your toilet, which was then joined with the water from your showers and then sifted through a gray water system that you could use to then water your lawns or water your plants versus everything just coming off of city water, right? Yeah. And so it was incredibly expensive in 2010. And I haven't looked at it in the past probably, this was 16 years ago, right? Yeah. So it was incredibly expensive in 2010, 11, 12, 13. Some people did it. I thought it was really cool. I thought the coolest one, my wife, Megan, and I had in our apartment in Monterey, we had the system that went from the sink to the toilet, which I thought was super cool. Like it's still backfilled with city water. Okay. But our sink would empty out into the top of our toilet tank. So that way it could use that water as well, rather than using all the city water.
You just get like little toothpaste going into your toilet.
Right. Essentially.
Did that happen?
Yeah, it did. It was primitive and it was cheap, but the toothpaste breaks down in water once it, if you put toothpaste in water long enough, it becomes, it disintegrates, but every once in a while we would see toothpaste in there, but which was funny. But I haven't looked into it, but I got to assume the technology's advanced to a point now where
they don't have toothpaste going down your
absolutely. But it was things like that I really enjoyed, like the problem solving aspect of and that's what drew me to the law. Okay. Right. I knew I was always going to go to law school. Like ever since I was a little kid, I knew that I was going to go to law school, but I didn't think I was going to be a traditional like lawyer. Yeah. I grew up in the 80s, and I think all of us, and I still think it's required reading, that you read To Kill a Mockingbird. Yep. There was another, and my mom growing up in San Francisco was big into civil rights. So growing up, we read a lot about civil rights leaders, about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers, and a lot of these civil rights leaders that were assassinated and whatnot. And Medgar Evers was really the one that stuck with me, and he's kind of the least known. If I said Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, most people are like, yeah, I know. Right. I know who Martin Luther King is. right? We have a national holiday, and most people have heard of Malcolm X. Denzel did a movie about him, and he's fairly prevalent in modern society. But not a lot of people know who Medgar Evers is, and he was a civil rights leader in Mississippi, and he was assassinated in his driveway in front of his children by a member of the Ku Klux Klan, Byron D. Beckworth. And it was 30 years later, after he was assassinated, did the district attorney's office have enough evidence to convict Byron D. Beckworth of the murder of Medgar Evers. And it was a lawyer by the name of Bobby DeLauder. And when I was a kid, I was obsessed with the Medgar Evers story and Bobby DeLauder. Sad note, Bobby DeLauder eventually became a judge, and then he was removed from office because he took a bunch of bribes and threw a bunch of cases, which absolutely ruins the childhood fantasy of I want to be like Bobby DeLauder, and I wanted to be like Clarence Darrow, and I wanted to be like these guys that really, really hard fought civil rights guys. Bobby DeLauder was a district attorney, he was a prosecutor. Clarence Darrow was he was an attorney in the 20s. Thurgood Marshall worked for the NAACP and the ACLU before he was a Supreme Court justice. All of these guys, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a ACLU lawyer as well. They were all these amazing civil rights lawyers. And I'm like, I want to do something like that. I want to solve problems. I want to change systematic injustice, but I don't want to be like the lawyer. I don't want to be the head counsel on a case. There's so many other ways that you can be, a positive movement in your community that doesn't require practicing law.
Right.
But it did require a law degree.
Okay.
People take you much more seriously when you have a law degree and you have a bar card. Once you've passed the bar, there's a level of legitimacy that all of a sudden shows up when you say, hey, I passed the California bar, I'm a practicing attorney, whether I'm doing what I do now, which is problem solving and people management, or if I'm taking cases and defending people in court,
right.
The idea that as an attorney, you have almost a built-in trustworthy reliability sort of aura to you, and people will tend to listen to you more because of your education. But also law school teaches you how to have difficult discussions without being a difficult person. Now, I could be a difficult person. I can be rude. I can be callous. I can write letters that call people names underhandedly, and I can tell people to jog on and to go to hell, and I could do all of that. I can do all that very eloquently in a letter. But more importantly, I can have real discussions with people about very, very difficult subjects that we disagree on, fundamentally disagree on,
right.
And not come away from that conversation calling somebody names or making them feel like their opinion is wrong because of X, Y, and Z.
Oh, it's true.
But rather giving them something to think about that may, change the way that they view whatever policy issue they're kind of focused on in the moment.
Huh.
So that's what I knew law school was going to get me.
Yeah.
More than just filing cases and, suing the government or suing big companies because they they polluted or something to that effect. I knew that wasn't. Also, the realization set in fairly quickly. Those types of cases where, let's say you're suing PG&E for poisoning a pool. Or you're suing the U.S. government for...
Has it happened?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Poisoning a pool?
Oh, yeah. PG&E is horrible. PG&E is Pacific Gas and Electric. They're based out of California. They've done anything and everything they can to destroy communities. They poisoned pool. The whole fire that happened, the camp fire that happened in Northern California that burned down the city of Paradise and tore through that entire area was because PG&E neglected their transformers, and the transformers caught fire because they were running too high a voltage to it. Wow. PG&E has... they're a power company.
Assuming on accident, right?
Negligence. So,
that makes sense.
Right, 3 levels here, right? You have on purpose, which is the intent to do harm. You have negligence, I've just ignored it and it's gotten worse. And then you have on accident where there was an actual this product didn't perform the way it should have.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's rarely an accident, or there could be an accident, right? I'm driving a car. I'm drunk or I'm not paying attention. I'm on my cell phone. I'm watching TikToks or something.
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't make the turn and I drive right into a PG&E transformer box.
There you go.
Which then catches fire, which then burns down an entire area,
Right.
which has happened, right? That's how LA fires have happened. One of the LA fires have happened. Or I was barbecuing with my family and the wind picked up and it just, my grill got knocked over and the coals went out into the open field and poof, everything burned up. And with the wind moving so fastly, caught the flames and all of a sudden I've burned 100 acres. Or I blew out a tire while driving on an Arizona highway. The rubber bounced off, my rim hit the ground and it started sending off sparks, which then caught fire to the field that's right up next to the Arizona highway, and I just burned 1,000 acres.
Yeah.
So accidents happen.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, that is true.
Accidents do happen, but more often than not, companies are involved in either intentional harm, what we call torts,
Really?
or negligence.
Okay.
Because they've neglected their equipment or they have found out that this equipment will kill 1 in every 100,000 people, and they're like, oh, that's good enough. Like, we'll still put it out to market. So there's a lot of like paints and a lot of candies that were put out to the market, even though they showed that they killed maybe 1 in 100,000 people. And companies have justified that that's an acceptable rate because they base it on, okay, if we sell 1 million units and 1 in every 100,000 people die, so that's 10 people that are going to die over 1 million units. Okay, the average payout on one of those is going to be $2.3 million for the average American. So now we're looking at, okay, if we sell 1 million units and we're going to pay out $23 million in death benefits for these cases, but we make $1 billion, great, that works for us. Done. And we laugh and we joke about it because we're like, how can people be so callous? How can people think that that's okay? Well, at the end of the day, my job, honestly, right now is to protect shareholders. My job is to make sure that our business returns money to the shareholders. So if there's a risk in what we do, I make the recommendation to the board of what that risk is. I make my best presentation about this is what could happen. Granted, we're not in the business of people dying. Nobody dies because of our job site. There's actually a really great story that we'll get into about someone who did die at one of our job sites, and it's insane. But people don't die in building houses. Like that's and so our risk reward is whether or not a person who has a bad credit score or maybe has a foreclosure on their credit record, if they're smart enough for us to lend money to. That's our biggest issue. But a lot of these companies, especially when I was working in natural resources, they're supplying power, water, sewage to people in Arizona alone. And there's places in California, Death Valley, Mojave Desert, parts of Northern California in the valleys that get up to 105, 106, 107 and higher. So if you're not getting water or power, you're dying. Right. And we see it here in Arizona all the time. Right. Yeah. We'll turn on the news this summer and we'll hear about 3 or 4 people that died in their house due to heat exhaustion. Right. It's kind of Arizona's thing. But when you see that in California where, this family died in their home in Death Valley because the water company turned off their water and the power company turned off their power because they couldn't pay because they lost their job. Again, 1 in 1 million, 1 in 5 million, or 5 in 20 million. Is that a cost that's too high? And the California voters have decided, yes, that is too high. So they instituted, very much like Arizona, that power companies, water companies, utility companies can't shut off utilities between the months of May and October. Huh. No matter how far back you get on your bill, they can't turn off because those are life-saving types of things. Yeah. We can figure out the money later, right? We can figure it out. But if you're dead, you can't pay your bill.
Right.
So there's that, which is probably how it was sold to the board. But how they came out of it was like, no. We can always figure out how to do payment plans and how to do this. But during these months specifically, to natural resources in California, those are the types of things we looked at. How can we help figure out, or how can we help the different people get access to good raw materials and natural resources while maintaining the natural resources and the natural beauty of California, right? We could drain Lake Tahoe and just give everybody water, like unlimited water, but then we drain Lake Tahoe.
Exactly.
And Lake Tahoe is absolutely gorgeous because California's got, the Sierra Nevada mountains, Yosemite, all these places that are absolutely gorgeous that we could farm. We could absolutely farm those natural resources.
Right.
But then, you're destroying the natural beauty that is California. And I think all of us need to realize that we're stewards of the planet.
Oh, for sure.
That, the planet is going to be here long after all of us go.
Yeah, I agree.
I was in I don't remember what, like a joint session or something like that. And Governor Brown talked about how if the mosquito went extinct, there'd be huge ramifications to our ecological structures, or if buffalo's going extinct and things to that effect. And he said the only species that if they went extinct, the planet would benefit from was man. And so nature would regrow and would retake back the earth and put it back to a more natural state. I mean, there's something to be said about the intelligence of man and what we're doing and the stewardship that we have and the reason why we're intelligent beings and all that jazz. But I think we have to strike that balance between this is as a human, intelligent human creature, we are smart enough to know that we have stewardship over everything that is measurably less intelligent than us.
Yep.
So because we have that dominion and that stewardship over it, there has to be levels of protection while at the same time allowing men and women to flourish and to be whatever success looks like in that, to be free and all those things. But we're kind of mixing up those lines. And when I was working in the government, I was seeing those lines getting much more blurry because, what's good for X group that has access to people in power may not be great for Y group or the environment as a whole. And so you see the corrupt nature of the natural man or of men that, you get a little taste of power and you really like it. And then a little more and a little more and a little more. And then you've forgotten completely what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Martin Luther King said that we have created a world where your neighbor could be across the planet, but we haven't created a world where your brother could be your next door neighbor. And I think about that because you're gonna put this podcast out and somebody in Nepal or Mongolia or Japan or Peru or wherever you're gonna see it. But we have this great reach, but we haven't used it in a way to where we all come together for a common good and a common, shared vision of what we could all do if we all got on the same page. And that's not to say United States is in a bad place right now. It's to say that the world is in a bad place.
Okay.
Where 187 sovereign nations ish, 206 I think actual sovereign nations, and we just can't get along. We can't see past to the greater good. And I'm not talking about we need to have one world order and we need to have that sort of stuff. But we can operate as independent sovereign nations while at the same time stewarding the important natural resources of the earth and reaching technological heights to where we can eliminate things like hunger,
right,
or disease, right? And that's why, I went to law school. That's why I was that's why I wanted to have a career that may be a little bit different or a little bit, out of the ordinary. Is because, even as a little kid, I saw a lot of things that I didn't like about the world. And the best way that I thought I could change that would be I get a law degree and then I'll be able to help people problem solve. Now,
That makes sense.
I do it on a small level.
Sure.
Right. One of the things that I'm proud of about what we do as a real estate investment trust is over the last 10 years, we have lent out over $5 billion. And we have, in that time, we have built or remodeled over 20,000 houses that were sold to families within the United States.
Okay.
So I think about that a lot when I'm looking at what I'm doing, is that I may not be, saving the rainforest, or I may not be able to divert more water out of the Colorado River, or I may not be able to figure out a new technology that allows us to put salt water to fresh water. I'm not going to be able to do that. But every day our company allows families the opportunity to own a home, which is the basic American dream.
It is.
And have a stable life, because we funded a loan where somebody went in there who has the ability, the skills, and the wherewithal to build out a house that is livable, to take a distressed property, a broken down property, maybe one that's been burned or dilapidated or something, and they see the value in that property, they build it back up and sell it off to a family that gets to now have a home when they didn't have one before.
It's April, and in the tech world, this is the season where growth really starts to accelerate. Now, if you've seen my work with AI and automation, you know I love efficiency, but I've learned through interviewing that you can't automate a perfect cultural fit. And that's why Zazzle is sponsoring today's podcast. They are experts on the human side of technology staffing. They take the burden off of executives by finding world-class talent through a process that's structured, but also personal, like a one-on-one interview. So massive thanks to Zazzle for making this episode possible. That's amazing.
So
that's the American dream.
Yeah. And so that's,
that really is.
That's why I really enjoy what I do. That's why taking a weird, went to law school, worked in government, worked in politics, worked in academia, and then ended up here at this trust. And for people that I don't spend an hour with discussing how I got to my job, they just kind of look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're a corporate lawyer and you do real estate." And I'm like, yes, if you want to take a very, very niche and very, very
you just want to put a box around this part of your
life.
Right.
Then you're absolutely right. All I do all day is real estate transactions, and I make sure that my investors make money.
Right.
You're right. And if that's how you want to box me up, great. I don't have time for you. I'm over here trying to figure out how we can provide more housing to more people throughout the United States. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at, Blake.
Okay. I love how with your dialogue, you're not afraid to just, be direct with people. I think that's a really valuable skill that you need nowadays, right? It's just to be direct with people and just be like, yeah, if you're not gonna or going to look me in the eye and talk to me and reason with me and appreciate my opinion, then I don't need to talk to you, right? Or I could and try and work with you on something. So it's like honesty, patience, and not bravery, but confidence.
When I was growing up, my parents taught me that you don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics.
Right.
And it never sat well with me, because that's what people wanted to talk about. People want to talk about religion.
They do.
People want to talk about politics.
They do.
And what we did is we handicapped, at least a lot of people that I know, we handicapped them from not having the emotional maturity to have a conversation that's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in their relationships. Causation and correlation, that's an argument for a later day. But you see the uptick of divorces, and you see the uptick of cheating spouses, and you see the uptick of abusive partners.
Yeah.
Because you don't see the emotional maturity being taught anymore, because we're just taught to avoid it. Yeah. You don't need to have these hard conversations. You don't need to, and it's like, I'm not saying that, we need to all have these really deep, hard conversations all the time, but shying away from, especially your companion, whoever your partner may be, right? Having those hard conversations is a requirement to having a healthy dialogue and a healthy relationship. And if you just take that back, like my wife has absolute access to me, 100% of every aspect of my personality. My wife has access to.
Yeah.
If I go back to my best friend, he's at about 90%, 95%. There's stuff that I still don't tell my best friend. If I roll back to like work people and work acquaintances, yeah, you get less access to 100% of my personality.
Right.
But I'm emotionally mature enough to know that there isn't a 0% or 100%, which is where I think a lot of people are at right now. You have to accept 100% of my personality, 100% of my opinions, 100% of everything I do. And if you don't, then you get zero access to me. And there are definite deal breakers, right, in there. There's, one of the things, and it was rough. I had a buddy of mine from high school that was cheating on his wife. And I'm like, you're done. Like, we don't do that. We are men of honor. We do not, if your marriage is so bad, like divorce, whatever, but what you're doing is not part of who we are. And so he went from 80% access to 10%
or to 10. Yeah.
Right. Because these are not the type, like I could still talk to him. I could still send his kids cards. I still love his kids. Like they're, like my nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
But him and I he's not getting 100% access or 90% access to what we used to get because you've let me know what type of person you are. I clerked for a federal judge and he has since passed away. And I love this man. He gave me a bunch of one-liners and I use them constantly. And one of my favorite one-liners from him is finding out the worth of a man is always cheaper than never knowing. So the minute that someone tells me how important I am to them, it'll always be more valuable than trying to figure that out on my own. Whether that's I lent a buddy $20 and he disappeared. Oh, so our friendship was worth $20 or $100. That's what our friendship was worth to you, was $100, and now we're not friends anymore because I lent you money and you don't want to pay me back. So that's what our friendship is. Or, hey, you're cheating on your wife. Okay, you just told me how trustworthy you are. So now I know the worth where I am in your scale of worth.
Right.
Or as someone who has been cheated on, I know where your worth is. And listening to people when they tell you. Now, can people change?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. People can change all the time. We believe in that. That's one of our, core foundational beliefs. But until they show you that change, they've shown you how much you're worth to them.
Yep.
And so you can adjust accordingly. And it's such a gift when people tell you that. I deal with people around your age who work for me, and they're always like, the drama is just, I'm like, it is, you're not going to see it now, right? You're 20 something years old. You're not going to see it now, but it is this giant gift that this person did this for you, whether they broke your heart or they lied to you, or the random person showed up at 2 a.m. when you needed a friend, or you saw a person at like a Denny's because you wanted to be alone. And then you saw this person, they came and sat by you. And you laughed the entire time. Those moments show you who people are. And there's such a gift, both in the bad and in the good, that you capitalize on those moments to be able to adjust accordingly who has access to your life.
Right.
And when you get the right people, when you get the right people who are focused on the right things that align with your focus, like you're unstoppable, because you just need like 3 or 4 people and you could take over the world. You don't need massive amounts of people, like 5. You have 5 great friends, right?
Yeah.
The blind man had 4 and they carried him to Jesus. That's why your circle matters, right? Their faith healed the blind man through Jesus. So it matters who's around you. And so learning, and this is a trial and error process. Was I great at this at 21? No. Was I great at it at 31? I was a little bit better. Yeah. Am I good at it at 41? Yeah, I'm really good at it now because I've been burned in the last 20 years by people. But identifying that early and having the emotional maturity to be able to say, all right, cool, you're going to live your life and that's great. But that smoke is not something that I could have in my life. I can't bring that over because I know the things that I want out of my life have nothing to do with what you're doing with. And you could be a great person. I could love you. You can be over there. I don't want you to starve.
Yeah.
But I don't want you sitting at my table. And it's one of those things that we haven't, my generation, millennials, and I think down through Gen Alpha, haven't learned that yet because we're too busy trying to validate our own feelings of right and wrong and all that jazz.
Right.
And so law school teaches you how to balance that.
How to balance that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But lots of things teach, like going on a mission teaches you how to balance that. Doing any sort of military service will teach you how to balance that. Doing AmeriCorps or Peace Corps is going to teach you that. When you sacrifice your time, energy, and effort to something that's bigger than you, it's going to teach you how to better regulate your emotions and better regulate your relationships with people. And I think that's lost on a lot of individuals because it's so me focused. It's so, look at what I can do. Look at what I bring to the table. And I'm constantly reminding people who work for me that are 21, 22, 23, 24, you bring nothing to the table.
Yeah.
Like you bring enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Right? You bring the want to learn. That's what you're bringing to the table. Most of the time when, especially my company, when we hire somebody, we're losing money for the first 6 months they work for us because we're training you how to do something. You are a fresh new, as I explained, we're a very niche company. Yeah. We're not, our skills are transferable, but you've got to be big brain to figure out how you can transfer our skills over to your next career move. But when you come to us, great, you have enthusiasm. Let me show you how a REIT works. Let me show you how collateralization works. Let me show you how the loan docs work. Let me show you how interactions work. I am constantly training you to get you to a point where you can start making me money. And that's 6 months down the line. And so patience coming from someone that's like, no, I got this. You don't got it. Like you got the enthusiasm and I love it, but you don't got it. Like you're not there. And I think that having a manager or having a mentor is so incredibly important outside of your parents, right? Your parents,
of course,
your parents are gonna love you and they're gonna raise you up. If they're good parents, they're gonna raise you up and teach you the right things. But you need to have outside mentors for people to have different opinions and
I definitely agree.
And different ways of seeing the world and different life experiences that they can impart upon you, so then you can see and become valuable to whatever you do in life.
Right.
Because you don't have to make money. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a CEO. But what you do have to do is you have to make life better. That's what you have to do. It is incumbent upon all of us to leave this place better than we found it.
Yeah.
And so whatever you do that makes this world a better place, do it. And do it often. We need more of that. We need so much more than that. And we need you to be able to figure out how you can move from failure to failure and still keep that positivity, that you can move from heartbreak to heartbreak and keep that possibility. You can move from success to success to success and still keep that humble positivity, because everything has a season.
Yeah.
Right. Everything has a season and every season ends. So you may be in a great season. It's going to go down to a really bad season. Maybe not soon, but it's going to get there. And then you're going to go into a good season. You're going to go into a boring season, and you're going to go into a mediocre season, and you're going to go to exciting seasons. And when you're young, those seasons are going to come super quick. And when you're older, the seasons don't you've kind of normalized out.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of normalize out. But everything's going to pass. And so you just got to make sure you're emotionally mature enough to regulate your environment to where you keep the 5 or 6 people in your circle that really lift you up and humble you down. And that's going to keep a very happy, like, purpose-driven life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just kind of went off the rails for a minute.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's fair.
I think we could end with that with one question.
Yeah.
Speaking of seasons, I hear you either hate or love the Dodgers.
Oh, I hate the Dodgers.
Why is that?
So growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, you're a Giants fan from birth.
Okay.
Division rivals are Giants and Dodgers. And I mean, Giants and Dodgers, I can do this for years. Giants and Dodgers were division rivals when they were both based in New York.
Okay.
So New York Giants, New York Dodgers. Dodgers got their name because they were on the other side of the trolley lines and people had to dodge in between trolley cars to get to Ebbets Field to get to the game. Huh. So they became the Dodgers. And the Giants were in New York, and Giants are a pretty standard baseball team name, but they were the big guys in town. They were the Giants. So you had the Giants and the Dodgers. And then the Dodgers moved out to Los Angeles, And the Giants moved out to San Francisco, and they became the Giants and the Dodgers in California. Like, they just always have been division rivals, and it's great. Oh my gosh, I hate the Dodgers as an idea.
Yeah.
The Dodgers have some of the most amazing talent in baseball today, hands down. They have a roster of Hall of Famers, and they have guys on their team that I would absolutely 100% buy their jerseys and root for them if they weren't on the Dodgers, right? I think that they have, like, Freddie Freeman is one of the greatest individuals, just has his priorities straight, cares about his family, really focused on that. Shohei Ohtani is a generational talent, Mookie Betts and Kiki Hernandez and all these guys that are, Will Smith that are on, Edwin Diaz is an amazing pitcher. But you have all these guys on the Dodgers that are clearly going to be first ballot Hall of Famers, and they're amazing guys. But I hate the idea of the Dodgers because I grew up ingrained in the Dodgers-Giants rivalry.
Okay.
And it's fun. There's people in my office that are Dodger fans. I really enjoyed this last year's World Series. I felt it was one of the best World Series in probably 10, 12 years since the Giants won. And it hurts to watch the Dodgers win, but you can't have the greatness of my love of baseball without having rivalries that run deep like Giants and Dodgers.
Yeah.
You can't. The game wouldn't be the same if the Giants just didn't have such a heated rivalry. And I wouldn't be as enthralled in baseball if there wasn't such a fantastic rivalry.
Yeah.
And it's fun. And it's something fun to talk about. And it's, it's something fun to go do. And it's something that's very quintessentially American. Baseball is such a defining American pastime. That you could and it's great that all these other cultures and all these other players and all these other teams are coming together where, I would say of the top 25 players in the MLB today, maybe 6 are American born. The rest are Venezuela, Japan, Cuba, like all these other places, because baseball is such a universally accepted and understood and beloved sport.
Yeah.
And that's the type of community we're looking. Like, the World Baseball Classic was just played this past summer. Okay. Right? And Venezuela won the World Baseball Classic against the United States. Yeah, they beat the United States in the final game. But you get to see the world stage that is baseball. And in a sport that's uniquely American, is no longer dominated by Americans, because we've done such a great job of showing how amazing this sport could be to everyone else in the world, that kids grow up with baseball gloves and bats and talking about their favorite players. And you're seeing the Shoheis and the Geno Suarez's and the Ketel Martes and the guys from Team Venezuela. I can't think of who's on the Venezuelan team right now that is a popular name outside of Geno Suarez. But then you get to see Shohei playing for Japan. You get to see some of these guys playing for Italy, that their family, and you get to see, like, the heritage and the love of the sport, and you get to see it on a world stage, and it's just great. And we come together and we play a baseball game, and at the end of it, we all high five and shake hands and walk away. Mm-hmm. And that's, if that's not the metaphor for the utopia that I'm trying to build, I really don't know what is.
Yeah.
So, hate the Dodgers in a very, very loving, caring way.
Well, I love the Dodgers, so
okay.
There's going to be an eternal fight here.
That's fair. I mean, all of us are young and can repent and move forward. So, one day.
Yeah, but I'm afraid to argue with you, because I know you'll probably win. You have a life of experience.
Growing up in Arizona, as you did, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, you're going to get a lot of crossover with Los Angeles. Yeah. You just are. The close proximity here and all that jazz. So, sure. And I don't hate Dodger fans. Like, I love without fans, there's no game. So it's
true.
It's always, it just happens to be that I have a deep, abiding love for the Giants and a very, very deep hate for the Dodgers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's. I guess that's how it has to be.
We'll leave it with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You bet, man.
Yes, I really appreciate it.
Sure thing, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you asking me.
Of course. And if you haven't subscribed to this, be sure to subscribe to Leaderboard Podcast. And thank you so much.
You bet, Blake. Always good to be here.